What I want to do is to make this historical point, just do an imaginary thought experiment based on a survey to get a sense for the ethical temperament of our culture. Suppose we went to, since we're in the United States here, we just rounded up 1,000 ordinary Americans. Say we went to the shopping mall and we just asked the first 1,000 Americans that we came across the following question. Do you think that the values embodied in the Declaration of Independence, the founding document of the United States of America, that those values are good values? And of course, after a moment's reflection, scratching their heads to make sure that they can figure out what those those core values are. There are 3 of them. They will say yes, of course. That's and perhaps they will just say yes reflexively, totally, without even thinking about the value here. But let's pause for a moment and identify what those 3 core values are. Declaration of Independence is a founding political doctrine. We're starting a new country, the colonials then said, in transition to no longer being colonials. And there are certain principles that we take to be self-evidently foundational and important. And on this country is going to be based on the basis of these 3 principles. So all of the things that we do governmentally and culturally will be with reference to these 3 principles. Those principles are that all individuals have equal rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, if we ask what these 3 principles mean, well, the right to life being the foundational one here, the argument is that every citizen has his or her own life. My life is mine, your life is yours. I don't exist for your sake. By contrast to feudal times where ultimately everybody lives by permission of the king. You don't have a right to your life, you have a right to your life if the king chooses to continue to let you live, but the king can, or one's noble lord can, if he so chooses at any point, use your life to whatever end he so chooses, including killing one if necessary. So the Americans are rejecting that feudal institution and individualizing life as being an inherent value that each individual has that is not to be taken away. Principle of liberty, the right to liberty, every individual has the right to do with their life what they so choose, so long as they are respecting the equal right of all other individuals to live their lives as they so choose. I'm not in any fundamental way a slave of other people, a servant of other people, and nor are you in any fundamental way a slave or a servant of me. And finally, pursuit of happiness, every American's birthright, right? And the Americans did think of this as a universal, so every human being's birthright is that to achieve a measure of self-realization, flourishing happiness in his or her life. And it's up to you as an individual to, of course, to define what your flourishing life is going to consist in, and then you have the freedom to live your life as you see fit to bring that realization into existence. Okay, now that's a little bit of political philosophy here, but these are ethical values, and the argument is that the United States is fundamentally a moral nation because it's taking certain moral values seriously and instantiating them in a political context. Now, if we ask where these political values came from, of course, when we start doing our research on the Founding Fathers, they were political revolutionaries, they were political activists, they were also principled intellectuals, right, on all of these issues as well, but they were not political philosophical originators in the theoretical sense, and they were drawing on certain traditions. And they were certainly drawing on the British political traditions, most famously associated with John Locke, whom we'll be encountering a little bit later in this semester. Less famously, Algernon Sidney and a number of other thinkers in that tradition. But then if we ask Locke and Sidney and the others, where did they get their principles from? We are then led back to Roman authors, Aristotle, Cicero, and various other ones, both of whom and many others of whom were familiar to both Locke and Sidney, and then also in the 1700s to the American revolutionaries. So Aristotle, of course, is a Greek, Cicero was a Roman, so what we have here is a set of political principles that are ultimately coming out of the Greco-Roman cultural tradition. Right? This is one example of the great influence across many centuries of those two classical civilizations. All right, that's issue number one. Change color here just for fun. And contrast, we'll go with some red. All right, carry on this mock survey. Suppose those same 1,000 Americans that we had asked the question, do you think rather the Declaration of Independence, its values are good values or not? Suppose we found some way to contact them again sometime down the road, and we asked them the following question. Do you think that nuns are morally good individuals? Nuns, monks, we might expand to include priests and so forth. Now, whether the person is religious or not, whether the person knows any nuns personally or not, chances are good, if we ask that question of 1,000 standard Americans at the shopping mall, the vast majority of them will more or less reflexively say, yes, of course, a nun is a morally good person. A monk, right, is a morally good person. Now, I said it could be a reflexive answer, but it could also be a thoughtful answer, and behind that reflex is going to be the idea that people who are monks and nuns and priests dedicate themselves to a certain life calling, a religious calling, and central to that life calling is a moral code, which priests, monks, and nuns dedicate themselves more than the average person to trying to live by and uphold and model and teach to other people.